and returning more widely as we head into Monday. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye-bye.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers. Sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. In Greater London, the M11 southbound exit slip at Junction 4 is fully closed due to a police incident. On the M74 at Junction 7, southbound lanes are restricted following a road traffic incident. In Scotland, expect longer than usual travel times there. The A55 between Junction 23 Landulers and Junction 23A Penzance has a lane closed for emergency work. A 40 miles per hour speed limit is in place, resulting in slow traffic. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World. Tonight on the show we've got political commentator Chloe Dobbs. She'll be going head-to-head with Matthew Torbit, a former Labour Party advisor. We've also got former top cop Norman Brennan. He's on to talk about knife crime, and former England rugby player Jeff Probyn. But first, let's go to the news.
Thank you. The top stories: a small boat migrant has died in the English Channel this morning as hundreds more attempt to cross to the UK. The migrant's body was brought to Dover Harbour along with dozens of other migrants who were taken off a small boat in the middle of the Channel around 7 a.m. this morning. Border Force disembarked 51 migrants before the rescue vessel moved position to the nearby Dover RNLI station. The cause of this latest migrant tragedy is not yet known. At least 225 migrants have lost their lives in the Channel since the small boats crisis began in 2018. Home Office official figures confirmed 211 small boat migrants crossed yesterday. Meanwhile, more than 2,000 small boat migrants have arrived in the UK in a record week of illegal crossings, with hundreds more making the journey on Good Friday. GB News can reveal so far today 138 people have been brought to the Border Force Migrant Processing Centre at Dover Harbour. US President Donald Trump has suggested Buckingham Palace is setting a date for September for his second state visit to the UK. The president told reporters in the White House last night that he was invited by the King and the country. It comes after Sir Keir Starmer handed Mr Trump an invitation letter from King Charles in February during his visit to Washington. Mr Trump was hosted by the late Queen Elizabeth II during his previous three-day state visit. Traditionally, second-term US presidents are not offered a state visit and have instead been invited for tea or lunch with the monarch at Windsor Castle. In other news, US President Donald Trump will walk away from trying to broker a Russia-Ukraine peace deal within days unless there are clear signs that a deal can be done, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has warned. After meeting with European leaders in Paris, Mr Rubio said, "We're not going to continue this endeavour for weeks and months on end." The Kremlin says Russia is committed to resolving the conflict, ensuring its own interests, and is open to dialogue. Donald Trump promised during his election campaign to end the war within his first 24 hours in the White House. He moderated that claim on taking office, suggesting a deal by April or May. 2 British tourists are among 4 people killed after a cable car snapped near Naples in Italy. A middle-aged man remains in a critical condition following the accident. 16 passengers were safely evacuated from a cabin that stopped in mid-air near the foot of the mountain. The accident occurred just a week after the cable car, popular for its views of Mount Vesuvius and the Bay of Naples, reopened for the season. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More news soon.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World. I'm Lee Anderson, the Reform UK Member of Parliament for Ashfield. And this week in the Supreme Court, it was decided by a top judge that, get this, a woman is a woman. And here to discuss this tonight, we've got political commentator Chloe Dobbs, and our left in the corner is Matthew, wait for it, not Stadlen, Matthew Torbit. Thanks for coming, Matthew. You're our far left in the corner. We'll start with you first. Yeah, what's happening, mate? This day and age, it's had to go to the Supreme Court to decide that a woman is a woman.
What's happening, I suppose, is clarifying what the law is. The law, as I've always understood it, and up until the point of the last general election, I was still working for Labour MPs. My advice was that the Equalities Act quite clearly states that women are allowed single-sex spaces. That's still the case. I think there are women that feel like their rights were being rolled back a little bit. They were fearful of potential people with nefarious aims and therefore wanted clarification on that, and the judge has ruled as he did.
Do you think they make a fair point, though, some of these women? Women like my mother and my sisters and my nieces feel intimidated when they go into supposedly women-only spaces and somebody turns up 6'5", feet like barges, a wig on, bitter lippy, and it's obviously a bloke.
I think it can depend. I think you have people like you outline that may have nefarious means and are dressing up and maybe...
Well, you can take it from me, Matthew. I don't dress up and I won't be going in women's changing room. Chloe, over to you, darling.
Look, Matthew, you're making this sound far more mild and far less heated than it actually has been. Let's not forget the horrific abuse that people like J.K. Rowling have had. Obviously, she's a high-profile picture, but there are far, far more women who, for simply stating the obvious, that, you know, a woman is a biological woman, have received absolutely horrendous abuse. There's been so much animosity in this debate. Now, the Equality Act was written at a time when there really was no question about what a woman is. It's only been in the past few years where we've got to this place where we've got this nonsense, where we've got loads of people who genuinely believe that a man in a frock is literally a woman. So hence there definitely was some clarification needed, and I'm very happy to see that the judges actually did the right thing and restored sanity. I feel like this sets a huge precedent, sends a very strong message to a lot of trans rights campaigners who have been advocating for things which are quite frankly very dangerous to women. And I was very worried, given we've seen a lot of scary cases of judges acting as lefty activist judges recently, especially when it comes to deportations, the chicken nuggets case and all the rest of it. So I was very nervous about the decision, but this is good.
You know what, Matthew, when I was born, I'm fairly sure the midwife, you can't call them midwives anymore, there's another name you need to call them, but the midwife at the time said to my dad, "Congratulations, Mr. Anderson, you've got a boy." And I'm fairly sure that when my sisters were born, the midwife would have said, "Congratulations, Mr. Anderson, you've got a daughter." We know the difference between a man and a woman. Why has it had to go to court for a judge to say what a woman is?
I think because people have felt, like I said earlier, that their rights are being trampled upon, and because there's a lot of confusion whether trans people should or shouldn't be allowed in certain sports, and ruling bodies haven't had the courage, I would say, to make a decision on that. There's left a big grey area, and there's been a lot of ambivalence. I think the one thing about yesterday, though, that I think still leaves a grey area is trans people will still want to play in sport. So therefore, do you have what Sharon Davis has called for, sort of an open category, and therefore anybody can take part, male, female, whatever?
Well, it's interesting you say that, Matthew, because, you know, if we had, like, an open, like, for example, and this is no disrespect to women, Chloe, if we said the next Olympic Games, there's going to be no women's categories and no men's categories, it's just open, you all compete in the same races, how many women would actually get to the Olympic Games?
None. It would just be
all men.
It would be all men, and there is absolutely no denying whatsoever that there are huge differences between men and women in sport. We recently just had 2 biological men contesting a women's pool final, which I thought was just such a slap in the face to women. And some people said, "Oh, you know, it's not boxing, it's not running, it's just, you know, pushing some balls around a table." But there are differences in almost every single sport, and it is so important that there's this clarity. I think, you know, referring to what governing bodies for sport are going to do, what politicians are going to do, what the NHS are going to do and whatnot, I think they're probably having a sigh of relief right now, because people like Keir Starmer have probably been quite frustrated not knowing what to do about this issue. Same for sporting bodies, because they don't want to upset everybody. But now they've got something to go on from an independent judge where they can say, look, I didn't decide this, but this is the precedent that has been set. And so I think you will see governing bodies of sport now feeling like they've got the courage, because of that precedent being set, to say, no, the women's category is for women. I'm sure you'll have some sports where maybe they have, you know, an ambiguous category in the middle, or others where they say you have to compete in the men's category if you're a trans woman. But I think that women are going to see their sports, their single-sex spaces and whatnot protected in future.
OK, Matthew, what do you think about what Chloe's just said?
So I think what Sharon Davis has proposed is that you wouldn't just have an open category and that's it. You'd have a male category, a female category, and then to ensure that lots of other people can take part, you'd have an open category as well. So it would be adding to the Olympics. Yeah. I think there are Olympic sports that men and women do compete in, whether that be tennis, golf, I think sailing is another. So there is opportunity. But the other thing that I think leaves a bit of a grey area is the Supreme Court had ruled, you know, correctly, that the gender recognition certificate does not allow you to be a woman. That doesn't allow you to be a woman, biologically, legally, whatever. I've got a mate who's a trans man, right? He looks more of a bloke than me. I didn't know for 2 years that he was even a woman previously. It's only until he told me. So if that's the case, does that mean he would have to, by the law, go into a female changing room? Because I think that would make people feel just as uneasy, and you know, not to put Chloe on the spot, but if you've got a bearded fella who's 6'3", who actually was born a woman, where does that leave us as well? So I think it leaves a few more unanswered questions.
Well then, Chloe, that's a good one to come back on.
Yeah, I think there are some areas where there is no straightforward answer, and I think you'll probably see a lot more places where you've got the men's loos, you've got the women's loos, and then you've got a gender-neutral loo. I think that you've got, you know, well, the vast majority of places, pretty much everywhere, has a disabled toilet, right, separate to the men's and the ladies anyway.
Oh, but then you're going to say, are you going to label transgender people as disabled?
I'm not going to label them as disabled, right? There's nothing wrong with having, you know, a disabled loo also has on it gender-neutral as well, or you have two loos which maybe previously were 2 disabled loos, and now one of them's a disabled loo, one of them's a gender-neutral loo. So I don't see there's really too much of an issue there. There will be some cases where there are some teething problems, but I think that we are earing towards the side of protecting women's safety now. We've had some really scary reports come out recently about what's happening at leisure centres, where the advice was that you should have these, gender-neutral changing rooms. And although they had cubicles, these cubicles were not right from the floor to the ceiling, and people were putting cameras over. Women were being, sexually assaulted in horrific numbers.
But we had this back in the day, Matthew. My local swim baths in Sutton in Ashfield, we had the odd pervert turn up and ended up in the wrong changing rooms. But they were soon carted off to the local NIC and probably sent away for a few months. But let's talk about schools. And, kids are being taught now at school that they could be 72 different genders. Is that the next thing that's got to stop, do you think?
I think, listen, people are free to do what they want, but I think that's silly. Yeah. I think I read earlier in the week that kids were being taught that anybody can have periods. I think we have to be truthful about what biology is.
What's driving this nonsense, though, Matthew?
I don't know, because it's a very small percentage of the population to have a lot of attention for.
Well, it's not a small percentage of some of the MPs that I work with in Parliament. Ask some of them, can a woman have a penis? And they can't answer you.
Oh, I mean trans people in general. You're talking about 0.5% of the population, which, I don't know whether the media plays its part. We had 6,000 media headlines about trans people last year. I think most people wouldn't ever come across a trans person unless they read about it. So I think the schools thing is interesting, but also I think if I was taught about it, it wouldn't make me trans. I'm a straight fella and always would be. You could put me in genderless clothes, I'd still be a straight fella today. So I think unless you already...
Yeah, but you're getting on a little bit, Matthew. Obviously not as old as me. But when you're 5, 6, 7, you're impressionable and you trust adults, you trust teachers to tell you the truth and point in the right direction. And you might be a little bit confused. You're experimenting with who you are at that age. When I was 5 and 6 years old, I wanted to be a pilot. I wanted to be a footballer. I wanted to be a soldier. I wanted to be all these things. But, when you grow up, you develop and you find something else. So you're very impressionable at that age.
I think you are impressionable. But again, I think I was who I was. And therefore, it was never going to affect me. Who's to say it would affect anybody else? Would it affected you?
Well, Chloe, what did you want to be when you were 6-year-old?
Well, I was fully convinced that I was a mermaid, but at some point, I thought I was half mermaid. I thought I was half cat at one point. But at some point, you grow up, and the adults.
But what if your teacher would have said to you, Chloe, you're a mermaid. You are a mermaid.
Well, then I might have believed it, right? And that's what is happening with these kids, right? They need to be. Kids are going to say all sorts of silly things, but then they need to be given a dose of reality by the adults. And as you say, when you're at that young age and you're developing, a lot of teenagers, they really struggle with insecurities, girls especially with body insecurities. I want different colour hair, I want to be skinnier, and this and that, not sure about their sexuality. And so I understand that teachers, they want to be able to give people the space to talk about that. There are a lot of people who were gay in school many years ago who were absolutely terrified to come out, and now people feel more welcome to do so. But where we're ending up now is you've seen a lot of scary cases of people who were probably just gay, being told, actually, no, you're a different gender. Here are some puberty blockers. Let's irreversibly change your body, when they're actually nowhere near ready for that.
It's dreadful, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's really confusing a lot of children. That we need to give children self-confidence, but actually I think they're knocking people down. And I think that it often reinforces gender stereotypes, okay? We got to an era where we said, okay, if you're a woman and you don't like dresses and you don't like pink and you rather have jeans and you rather have short hair, that's absolutely fine. You do what you want, you're a free individual. But now you've even got these nutcases on TikTok who say, oh, I'm going to
by the way, the nutcases aren't here to defend themselves, but carry on, Chloe.
Oh, I've got these gender neutral, I've got these pink clothes and blue clothes, and I'll give them to my kid. And if the kid picks the blue one, that means it's a boy.
And the same thing, Chloe, you're right. Just because, and I've said this before, just because a little girl kicks a football, it doesn't mean that she wants to be a man or a bloke or a boy. And if a little boy picks up a doll, a Cindy doll, it doesn't mean he wants to be a girl. They're just curious. They're just playing, they're experimenting. Guys, that's a great debate. Coming up next, we've got Real Worlds, Real People with former England international rugby player Jeff Probyn.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is a Stingray torpedo in the hangar of HMS Duncan, an air defence destroyer. It's recently returned from operations in the Eastern Mediterranean. But today, on this Royal Navy vessel, it's not about war fighting, but it's about commemoration as we march towards 80 years since VE Day. So HMS Duncan has been hosting a street party on the deck here in Portsmouth. Earlier, we spoke to Commander Dan Lee about why he thought this was such an important occasion for the country.
So VE Day was a culmination of the end of, or the beginning of the end of World War II. It was a time that was a truly national endeavour, whether that be people digging for victory, people in new roles in fields and factories, people supporting at home, children evacuated, and it was such a huge national event. It is something that we should really celebrate, that it was coming to an end. With that, with the number of veterans who are sadly reducing in numbers, today's a real opportunity. We're really happy to have a number of the local school children and Royal Navy cadets here, so we can tell the story of World War II, why it was important, and what we fought for.
And earlier we spoke with Ross Kemp, who's been a key part of promoting the VE Day commemoration, about how the entirety of the United Kingdom should come together on the 5th of May, on that bank holiday weekend, to celebrate our fallen heroes.
It's very easy to forget that the freedoms that we enjoy in this country came at a price. And the veterans that are still alive, they won't be alive sadly in 10 years' time, so 80 is a big benchmark. And I think we should let them know that we appreciate the sacrifices that they and their colleagues made for us to enjoy the freedoms that we have.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
It's time for The Real World with Real People, and tonight I've got Jeff Probyn, former England Union international rugby player, and you played in a World Cup final back in the day, didn't you?
I did, back in 1991, which was the second World Cup. The first World Cup took place in 1987. I sat on the bench for that, didn't play in any games there. I wasn't capped at that time. But I played for all the games in the 91 World Cup. We got to the final. Sadly, we came second. But
you still got a gold medal?
Still got a gold medal.
Why was that, Jeff?
It's the only time that platinum was actually given to the winners, and
okay.
It was because it was sponsored by a company called Johnson Matthey, who were bullion dealers.
So, Jeff, you got your first England cap at the age of 31. You must have thought that it had passed you by, surely.
I did, really. I mean, particularly going to the World Cup in 1987 and sitting on the bench for the entire World Cup. England weren't, or the RFU weren't keen on capping people for a World Cup, because you only used to get caps. When you look at past players back in the old generations, people like Frank Cotton, Roger Rutley, the number of caps they got is 22 or 25 compared to now where players have 100.
Yeah.
And the reason is that for most of the games they played for England, they never got a cap, because you only got caps if you played against what were called the Foundation Unions.
Oh, okay.
Which was Wales, Ireland, Scotland, France, Australia.
A bit harsh, surely.
Well, so you put nobody who played against, say, Spain, Russia, America. You never.
But you're looking at rugby now, Jeff, and they are, you know, obviously great athletes, but highly paid great athletes as well. And I'm fairly sure that back in the day when you was playing, you had to have a day job as well.
We did have to have a day job, and it's interesting because people always think that the players now are so much better off trained hard than we did. Actually, after the first World Cup, the whole system changed in rugby in the sense that we as a group of players before 1987 used to meet once or twice a week, do a bit of training, go down the pub, have a few beers, you know, that sort of thing. After the 87 World Cup, we got a guy named Rex Hazeldine from Loughborough took over the fitness coaching of the England rugby team. And we started having to go to a gym 4 days a week. We had to do anaerobic training, aerobic training, sprint training and everything like that. So we went through that stage. And in a way, that was one of the reasons why the game became professional. Before that, we were all amateurs. We had to maintain a job. But when you were expected to spend 3 or 4 days in a gym and spend hours training, going to sprint training, etc.
But if you're going away, say on a tour, or you're playing in a World Cup final abroad, or matches abroad, and you have got a day job, and you can't go to work, who pays the bills for your family?
Well, nobody. The RFU didn't pay for them. You had to rely on your employer. I mean, I was fortunate. I was working in a family business. We were furniture manufacturers in the East End of London, you know, and so I maintained my wages. But there were a number of players who didn't have those sort of jobs, and
it must be a strange feeling though, Jeff, going from working in a factory or doing a normal day job then to going to play in front of maybe 80,000 people in the stadium.
Yeah, especially from where I come from. I mean, coming from being born and brought up in Shoreditch and Bethnal Green and that area, there wasn't any rugby there. And my overriding memory of my first cap, which was in Paris in France, I was able to buy 2 tickets. Wasn't given tickets, we had to buy 2 tickets. And I had to
that
pay,
was very kind of them, wasn't it?
Very kind. Yeah. I had to pay for also for their hotel, and because I could only get 2 tickets, my father and my wife came to the game. My overriding memory of my first cap was after the game, going to the tea room to meet my dad and my wife. Yeah. And as I'm walking up the stairs, my dad was standing at the top of the stairs shaking his head. I got to the top and said, "Dad, what's wrong?" He said, "I never realised this stupid game that you and your brother played could lead to something like this."
Wow. He must have been incredibly proud of you.
Yeah, he was, yeah. But you know, for him, it was just something that people did. They played this game, rugby.
Yeah. So obviously, rugby's opened a lot of doors for you, I would imagine. But you know, with a lot of responsibility comes with that as well. You get a bit of fame, not so much fortune back in your day, Jeff. But you know, people want you to get involved in stuff. People like the Wooden Spoon charity. I know you're involved in that. Tell me about the Wooden Spoon.
Yeah, charity. Wooden Spoon. When Wooden Spoon is obviously it's a rugby-based charity. The Wooden Spoon is something you get if you lose all your games.
Yeah. Have you got many wooden spoons?
No, I haven't. Didn't actually play in any Wooden Spoon.
Okay.
But the charity itself is a good charity. It works for disadvantaged children, so it enables disadvantaged children to have a better life, should we say, and helps their families as well. It also puts some money occasionally into the Injured Players Fund in rugby, which looks after...
But you see now, Jeff, especially in my neck of the woods, was always football. You go a little bit further up the country into Yorkshire, and that was, you know, rugby. But you drive around my constituency now at the weekend, and there's kids playing rugby all over the place now. They've got proper rugby clubs set up where they're playing from 5 and 6 year olds. Girls are playing as well. So, you know, it's a lot more, I think it's a lot more popular now than what it's ever been, and more people are getting involved in it.
Well, that's not true. There's less people getting involved in it. If you look back to when I started playing rugby, most rugby clubs had 6 adult senior teams, male teams, you know. Now, you're lucky if they have 2.
Yeah, but there's more children playing now, I see it.
Children have been playing, but there's been concerns about potential injuries, and that's knocking.
I think some of it's non-contact rugby as well, which is sort of...
A lot of it's they play touch rugby.
Yeah.
A lot of touch rugby, and obviously that's nothing like the real game.
Do you think we're going soft, Jeff?
I don't think we're doing that. No, I think it's. I think the reality is that, you know, that's where you get the change. What will happen? You'll see lots of kids playing it, but then once you actually start playing the proper game, then you get a reduction. added to which the costs.
See, we had this theory when I worked down the pit, because we had football teams and rugby teams. We had this theory that you played rugby if you weren't very good at football.
I played football. I wasn't bad at football.
No, but we had some really good teams in the pits in Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire. We had the pits had really good rugby teams and cricket teams and football teams, and it was great. Yeah.
Yeah, well, a lot of people who played in those areas were working class people. Yeah. So they had quite a physical lifestyle, which actually lends itself to the game of rugby. Yeah. And that can help you as a player develop the physical needs.
So there must have come a point in your career when you say, like you say, you got your first England cap at the age of 31. There must have been a stage in one of those matches where you're on the rugby pitch and you're looking around, not just at your own players, but the other players from the other teams from around the world, and thinking, my goodness, I'm on the same pitch as that man there. Who was that person when you look around? Or people?
I can't really, I don't really think about it. The reality is that when you go on the field, it doesn't matter if you're in one of the things that people say is the crowd help you. No, they don't, because you're actually focused on what you're doing. And so you're focused on your job, the player you're playing against. Because if you're not, then you're going to lose. So you have to be, if you like, tunnel.
Okay then, Jeff. Who is the best player you've ever played against? When you've come off the pitch and you think, thank goodness that's over.
Well, the best player I ever played against was actually the former England prop, Paul Rendell. And because I played against him at club level before I joined Wasps, because he was a Wasp player for all the time. But when I played for Richmond and things, Paul was an excellent loose head prop, and he was also very, very good in the line-out. Back in the days when you couldn't lift, he did. I don't know how, but he did. So he was technically a very good prop as well. Jason comes up close to that. Jason Leonard, obviously, most cap prop for England up until recently. I was the most cap prop when I was playing, 37 caps.
Wow.
Jason overtook it by a mere 77 more. I did score more tries than him. I was England's I scored the most tries for England as a prop.
Well, on that note then, mate, we'll call it a day. That's been fascinating. Our 8 or 9 minutes is up. Jeff, that's been a pleasure.
Lovely speaking to you.
Yeah, and coming up next, we've got right versus left.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new Royal Newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's time for Right versus Left with Chloe Dobbs and Matthew Torbett. And just a fact check here. He was hobbling in this morning on a couple of these crutches, so he's gone full-blown socialist, hobbling around, looking for a sick note. What's all this about, Matthew?
Well, you know, no one wants to employ a washed-up former Labour advisor, do they, Lee? You know what I mean? It's hard time out there. No, serious now, I've cracked my fibula playing football. It's going to be on them for a couple of weeks minimum, I think. So.
Fair point, fair point. Anyway, Chloe, Matthew... Does the British state have a problem with white working class people? I'm talking about, we've seen it over the past few weeks with different sectors. It could be the NHS, it could be the armed forces, you know, not wanting to employ white people, yet we're constantly told that we have white privilege.
Yeah, I mean, Westminster Council is one of the ones that stands out to me as being absolutely bonkers. The guy in charge being openly woke, saying that he feels guilty being a white person from South Africa where they had apartheid, so feels he needs to make up for that. And their rule is that if you have two candidates for a job and they are of equal merit, you must choose the one from not an ethnic minority background, we can't say that anymore, a global majority background. It's just beyond belief. And you see this, you know, box ticking happening everywhere. And they act as though it's the case that the colour of your skin determines how privileged you are, when actually white working class young men in particular are some of the least privileged people in our society, yet they end up back of the list. And also, it's not just jobs where the white working class are left behind by our politicians. Let's not forget what has happened with the grooming gangs. We have just had that announcement before the Easter recess to say that they are getting rid of essentially their commitments to 5 local inquiries, which already wasn't good enough as it was. We wanted a national inquiry, and that is a case of white working class girls being left behind because they're worried about being offensive. That is what is going on, the running theme throughout all of this. They're worried about upsetting anyone, but actually it's very much damaging people and putting white working class Brits at the back of the queue for
Matthew, white working class, let's just talk about lads for the moment, white working class blokes, lads, whatever, they've always been pretty useful. They've come in handy when it's come to going down coal mines, fishing, working in steel mills, and then being slaughtered on the front line in world wars, millions of them. But when we're looking at today, 2025, nobody wants to know them, do they?
I think the premise of the question, I'd say that the British establishment sometimes doesn't quite get the white working class. I don't think because they aren't the white working class. You know, they're very middle class, sort of academic, professional people. Therefore, they don't understand people's life experiences. I think cases like the NHS, for instance, that have brought in certain rules recently, the Rooney Rule that they have in American football, where you always must have an ethnic minority on the short list, I think is a little bit more nuanced. I think the way to sort of promote diversity or to tackle racism is through education. It's a very long-term process. It's through people meeting one another and understanding one another and experiences. On the other hand...
But isn't this a form of racism against white people, Matthew?
You may ask that to a black woman who is 4 to 6 times more likely to die in childbirth than one of her white counterparts.
But why is that?
I think usually it's medical racism, as they call it. It's people not quite is it the stereotype of not quite understanding when black women are in pain?
But the NHS is the most diverse workforce in Europe, so it can't be medical racism, surely.
Well, it depends. I think it depends on the area. I would agree that we have, I think it's about 30% people in the NHS are ethnic minorities. It is a very diverse workforce. But at the same time, I've known of black women who've gone, nothing against white people, but they would prefer to have a black midwife purely because they're scared of being...
But that's not racism, Matthew.
What, wanting a black midwife?
Yeah.
No, I think they're scared of being one of the statistics. But again, I think this is a long-term process in which if you're going to tackle racism, it's through education and otherwise and conversations.
But when I go to the doctors, Chloe, when I go to the hospital or doctors, I'm not bothered what colour skin they've got.
Well, the thing is, when I go to the doctors, I can say, I would prefer to have a female for this. I wouldn't like to have a male doctor for this, right? But that's not the case that I'm saying, okay, for every GP role that opens up, it needs to be, you know, 50-50 male-female quota. You know, I'm sure there's enough diversity naturally with the talent that comes through that, you know, if someone really specifically wants a woman or, you know, wants a black midwife, that I'm sure they can do their best to do something about it. I think you've drawn a false dichotomy where Lee has asked, oh, is it possible to be racist towards white people? And you've said, oh no, because there is racism towards black people. So it can be both ways, right? And I think that there is this false narrative that it is impossible for there to be racism towards white people. I know I'm bringing up the grooming gangs again, but I do think that is one reason why the left have very often denied the scale of this problem, because they don't think it is possible for there to have been what I think is a racist crime committed against young white girls. You know, they called them, you know, I won't say the exact words on telly, but we've heard horrible names of what they've called these young white girls. It very much was racist, and the left do not want to admit that racism can go both ways. Also, when it comes to jobs, on a separate note, I think you could end up with more racism if it is the case that people of a certain colour have got to their positions just because they've ticked a box. What's going to happen is you'll have, you know, white people in the jobs who have maybe worked harder for it or they've missed out on it, who look at their colleagues and go, they're not here because they're any
point,
good.
Matthew, isn't it? You know,
they're rubbish. They just ticked a box. This is unfair. They're going to feel a certain.
Yeah,
you know,
if you are a person of colour, like
them.
Chloe says, and then, you know, somewhere down the line, they're going to think to themselves, have I really got this job just because of the colour of my skin? That is wrong.
So a couple of things. I didn't purposely mean to draw a false dichotomy, and I'll be more clearer in that sense, in that I think there is potential to be racist against white people. I think it can be harder because it tends to come with power. The grooming gangs issue is a very good example of that, because the men involved had a hell of a lot more power over the young girls that were involved, and therefore they were purposely going after young white working class girls. So I totally agree with that. Most of my mates who aren't white do not like this sort of stuff. They don't want to just... The idea that they think they've got a job not on merit and on a tick box is not what they want. And I think this is the problem maybe of the establishment or people involved in it not understanding people across the board, because the working class people are obviously all different colours. And you cannot force diversity on people. It comes naturally through tackling racism, people meeting one another, understanding each other in their cultures, and therefore sort of toleration as well.
This is like the transgender debate we had earlier on. People weren't talking about this 10 years ago. People were just getting on with their lives, getting on with the jobs, applying for jobs, being successful, seriously not bothered about the colour of people's skin or the background or anything like this. But it seems that just a few people, Matthew, Chloe, in that place I work at, are pushing this nonsense every single day. We see it filter out into the civil service and all over the country, when really, in the real world, people aren't talking about this nonsense.
So I think you're right. I think most people don't really care about this stuff. They're bothered about the bread and butter issues. Most polling shows that they agree with the Supreme Court ruling this week. And I think you'll know yourself, being involved in politics for many years, every group has their loud, extreme voices, and I think that's the problem, both on the trans side and maybe on the...
I think what it is, Matthew, there's certain people on the left that look for a minority group, and they tell that group constantly, every single day, that you are victims, people are picking on you, when actually they are not. So, guys,
we're one of the least racist countries in the world.
It's time for the yes or no quiz, and I've thrown a curveball in today, Matthew.
Very good.
You know the rules, it's a yes or no. Chloe's a bit of a demon at this. So the first question... it's back, the penis question. Number one, can a woman have a penis?
No.
No.
It's very convincing.
No.
Chloe, should there be a mandatory jail sentences for people carrying knives?
Yes.
Matthew?
No.
Ooh, controversial. Matthew, is a woman an adult human female?
Yes.
Ooh.
Yes.
Matthew, will Starmer smash the gangs?
No.
No.
And number 5, Chloe, is Matthew swinging the lead with his pathetic pair of crutches?
Yes.
No.
Oh dear, Matthew, that's 5 each. I had to slip that one in at the end just to try and catch you out there, Matthew. I think there was a verbal tick, but I'll give you that one. Coming up next, it's Last Orders with former top cop Norman Brennan.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
The changeable weather across southern parts of Europe continues as we go into the weekend. Starting off looking in the east, and a fair few showers across the eastern parts of Greece into Bulgaria, also across parts of Montenegro and Croatia too. Mostly dry though for Italy. Heavy rain and strong winds pushing in across parts of Portugal and Spain. Meanwhile, the Canary Islands seeing a few spots of rain perhaps. A largely dry picture as we go into the beginning of next week, however. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hello there, very good evening. This is your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. I hope you've been able to enjoy this first day of the long weekend, though some of us may well have been stuck inside for most of it. We've got continuing outbreaks of rain across many western areas this evening and overnight. These will be heavy in places and rain warnings remain in force, so do continue to take care. It'll be drier out towards the east, though for all of us it's going to be a mild night, temperatures holding up around 7 to 10 degrees Celsius. This east-west split in conditions will be continuing as we head into Saturday. So the Northern Isles of Scotland, some brightness around, a few showers to watch out for, but other areas of eastern Scotland generally staying dry if rather cloudy. The rain though lingering out towards the west to make for a fairly damp and dreary day. The Antrim and Moor Mountains across Northern Ireland could well pick up quite a lot of rainfall throughout Saturday, so it is worth taking care if you are out and about in any of these regions. It should, though, hopefully be an improving picture for Wales and southwest England. While certainly there'll be some rain around first thing in the morning, it should be turning drier with the rain easing off later and allowing for a few brighter spells to be developing into the afternoon. But the best of any sunshine will always be out towards the east, though it is going to be feeling cooler here compared to today, particularly with quite a nagging easterly breeze just coming in off the North Sea. But temperatures inland at least getting towards 14-15 degrees Celsius. As we head into Easter Sunday itself, the weather front in the northwest that's been bringing the rain will gradually fade out and weaken, allowing for that rain to eventually clear off. But we've got another system just pushing into the far southeast, and so there will be some outbreaks of more showery rain moving into southeastern England at times. But for many of us in between, it'll be quite a nice fine day, some pleasant amounts of sunshine in there for anyone that does have any Easter day walks. But keep the brollies on hand because those showers are going to be continuing and returning more widely as we head into Monday. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye-bye.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
That's Last Orders at the bar for about the 10th attempt. Our producer man is struggling with the donga, the dinger, the bell. Anyway.
That probably would stop you coming into a pub,
no, it's pathetic. She had one job. Anyway, we've got Norman Brennan at the bar today for Last Orders. Norman, you're an ex-top cop and a anti-knife crime campaigner. You've been doing this for donkey's years. I know it's something that you've thrown your heart and soul into. And I also know you're working with Adam Brooks, the landlord of this pub, on this anti-knife crime campaign, where you want to see mandatory 5-year jail sentences for people caught carrying knives. I tend to agree, but please explain.
Well, what it is that if you carry a knife,
there's a very good chance that you're going to use it even if you don't intend to, and even if you want to defend yourself, there's a chance that you may lose your life. Now, you're more likely to be stabbed to death, 3 times more likely than shot. You possess a firearm on the streets of Britain, it's a minimum of 5 years imprisonment. You're 3 times more likely to be stabbed to death than shot to death. Yet if you're caught with a knife, it sometimes is no more than equivalent to a parking ticket. Wow. Now, how can that be right? And we now see that we have got too many parents planning funerals for their children rather than bright futures. And as a police officer, I was stabbed myself. I very nearly died. Arresting an armed robber or armed burglar. So I know the devastation. Yeah. And it's not just a wound that has to heal, it's sometimes psychologically, and many of us don't, because it can cause PTSD and lifetime of trauma.
What we need is a proper deterrent.
What we need is police officers on the streets. What made this country great, which is what we've lost, is moral fibre, community spirit and respect. After the World War, we didn't have all these great big televisions, mobile phones, top-of-the-range Range Rovers. We just had each other. Yeah. And people interacted, they got on. Somehow, Britain has lost touch with community spirit, talking to each other, understanding about discipline, respect and boundaries. And when you think that there are 4,000 gangs in Britain, 200 in London, their numbers are probably 10 to 25, almost every single one possesses a knife. Some can get hold of guns. Many of them have got no parental guidance. Too many fathers have gone away, and it's left kids now to form their own families, and they see easy money through drugs.
But why is it though, Norman? Why is it in places like Ashfield, where I represent, in the Midlands, in the North, and in that sort of area, don't have the same sort of problems, knife crime problems, as they do in places in London? Is this multiculturalism at play here?
I've got to say, I think it is a cultural situation. Certainly in London, I policed London. I was on a robbery squad for 6 years, and people are frightened to tell the truth. Yeah. And a lot of people in London, or certainly from the black community, think that the police target them because they're black. It's got nothing to do with being black. Yeah. When I went in as a robbery squad leader, I looked at the statistics and I saw who was committing the crime, and it was those that we target. And the thing is, Lee, what happens is too many people within the black community, sometimes community leaders, whinge and whine about being stopped and searched, but never come out with an alternative that is credible. What about all the families that my colleagues in the police service pick up and see at Moultrie's? Yeah. They're a bit sick and tired, and they're very annoyed that their children are being murdered, and they are our priority.
And there's a lot of it, Norman, you're right, is young black men being stabbed as well, which is heartbreaking.
They are both victims and offenders. Yeah. And we've got to stop making excuses, and the time has come. It doesn't matter whether you're black, white, male or female. Yeah. If you carry a knife on the streets of Britain without lawful authority or reasonable excuse, 5 years mandatory sentence, exactly the same for if you carry a gun, and 3 years if you're a child. And do you know what, Lee? And I'm probably Britain's lead expert on it. Yeah. But I live in the real world where everybody watching this programme today, you go into Ashfield. Yeah. Yeah. I live in the real world. Do you know the prison population may rise quite a bit, but the knife crime and the knife crime murders will absolutely plummet. Yeah. And here's an idea for the Labour government. OK, these prisons are going to fill up and you might need to build a few more. But once we can control knife crime and children and adults and parents know that they've got responsibility to control their kids and set boundaries, how about when we start emptying these prisons in a few years' time, they're used at major national community centres where people have got somewhere to go, and it's run by the communities, and it gives youngsters an opportunity to get off the streets.
It sounds common sense to me, Norman. I mean, you must have seen a lot of changes over the years with your coppering when you started, when you were a young whippersnapper, from today's policing.
I don't recognise the police service today. I truly don't. When I was in the police service, I've been retired 15 years now. I joined in 1978. The police controlled the streets. Yeah. We had the respect from the public, and do you know what? A lot of the villains respected us as well. And not only that, they knew that if they erred on our manor and they erred a bit too much, we would absolutely target them. And even when they come out of prison, we target them. And do you know what? They often gave up. Yeah. They got back to doing something which was worthwhile, and that was getting a job, getting a family together. Yeah. and behaving themselves. Today, the robustness of the police service has gone. Do you know what? We're 18,000 officers short from the increase in population since 2009.
Yeah.
No police officers are on the street, the public don't see them, the victims don't get their crimes investigated, and the public don't feel safe. And getting back to knife crime, as I predicted 25 years ago, when as a serving police officer, will become an epidemic unless it's dealt with. Look at the streets now. The streets are lawless. Not every street, but the streets of Britain are lawless. And what makes communities and victims and young men and women, particularly men, frightened is they think they're likely to be stabbed. So they're taking knives out, which is unlawful, wrong, and it could cost them their lives. We need a deterrent. And as Adam and me have said, 5 years mandatory sentence. Why doesn't somebody listen? Why doesn't somebody act? Because nobody's acted over 25 years, and I've been bellowing from the hilltops for 25 years.
Well, let's see that. Let's see then,
officer.
if you can bellow from these pint pots here. You've got one there with the coloured specks on there.
Is that the one?
No. That's just half a pint. There, look. And you've got the old neck oil, and you're going to see if you can pull a pint in.
This is not one of them funny glasses.
No,
it's just got all these different fancy bits on it.
No, it's a proper
not going to be any
pint.
allegations?
No allegations at all.
Sure?
You've got to pull a pint in 30 seconds. Let's have a look. Yeah, I think we could do with it. Go on, keep going, Norman. It's not great.
You sure you haven't fixed this?
Just tilt the glass and stick that on the bar. Look at that. Bob has spilt some on the floor. Landlady's not looking happy. It's pathetic, Norman.
Do you know what? I used to be a licensee.
Did you?
Yeah, but I was the boss.
But you never poured a pint?
No, I
So you were telling people what to do rather than getting your hands mucking
I'm an advisor. I'm an advisor. I'm a campaigner.
Yeah, it's rubbish, mate. It's. I mean, I hope your campaign's going a lot better than your pint pulling. I'm going to give you probably a 3 out of 10 for that. But moving forward, you and Adam are doing great work. I know you are. What's the next steps in this campaign?
Well, we need to get 100,000 signatures.
What are we on at the moment?
We're on just about 20,000.
So we're going to put that link at the bottom of the programme here. This is Adam and Norman's knife campaign petition. Please sign it if you can.
What it is, in a nutshell, if people in Britain, and in particular the Labour Party, know what we need to do, mandatory prison sentences for carrying a knife, mass stop and search. Do you realise recent research of all the whingers and whiners saying the police shouldn't be stopping and searching so many youngsters? The research shows that over 30 children lives could have been saved if the police actually did their stop and searches.
The whingers and whiners need to shut up.
Mass education programme, mentors, and get people like me and other families. I've met over 2,000
Well, Norman,
families.
time's up. Thanks for coming back on the show for the second time.
Thank you.
Not so impressed with the pint, but very impressed with your campaign. That's Norman Brennan. That's Last Orders at the Bar. Thanks for joining me on Lee Anderson's Real World. It's been another great show with great guests, but coming up next, we've got State of the Nation.
Banned from entering the United Kingdom by the Home Office, French philosopher and big critic of mass immigration Renaud Camus is joining us live tonight on State of the Nation. You do not want to miss this.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good evening. This is your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. I hope you've been able to enjoy this first day of the long weekend, though some of us may well have been stuck inside for most of it. We've got continuing outbreaks of rain across many western areas this evening and overnight. These will be heavy in places and rain warnings remain in force, so do continue to take care. It'll be drier out towards the east, though for all of us it's going to be a mild night, temperatures holding up around 7 to 10 degrees Celsius. This east-west split in conditions will be continuing as we head into Saturday. So the Northern Isles of Scotland, some brightness around, a few showers to watch out for, but other areas of eastern Scotland generally staying dry if rather cloudy. The rain, though, lingering out towards the west to make for a fairly damp and dreary day. The Antrim and Mourne Mountains across Northern Ireland could well pick up quite a lot of rainfall throughout Saturday, so it is worth taking care if you are out and about in any of these regions. It should, though, hopefully be an improving picture for Wales and southwest England. While certainly there'll be some rain around first thing in the morning, it should be turning drier with the rain easing off later and allowing for a few brighter spells to be developing into the afternoon. But the best of any sunshine will always be out towards the east, though it is going to be feeling cooler here compared to today, particularly with quite a nagging easterly breeze just coming in off the North Sea. But temperatures inland at least getting towards 14-15 degrees Celsius. As we head into Easter Sunday itself, the weather front in the northwest that's been bringing the rain will gradually fade out and weaken, allowing for that rain to eventually clear off. But we've got another system just pushing into the far southeast, and so there will be some outbreaks of more showery rain moving into southeastern England at times. But for many of us in between, it'll be quite a nice fine day, some pleasant amounts of sunshine in there for anyone that does have any Easter Day walks. But keep the brollies on hand because those showers are going to be continuing and returning more widely as we head into Monday. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye-bye.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
So we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my